Hi, everyone, and welcome to Explaining the Unexplainable. I am a host here. I'm Mercedes Lucke Benedict, and our other host, co host, Bishop Joshua Sparks, will be on in just a few minutes. I tell you what, we have an incredible guest, and I am so glad he will be able to make it tonight because we have an author that is not he's been on the web radio network. Stan Fikes, our producer, has interviewed him in the past, and he has a really great take on a very old subject: vampires. I was just reading. Now usually our Bishop Joshua will do this amazing talk, or intro for our guests, and so I'm going to go ahead and just talk a little bit about you. um, Keith. Keith Evans is our guest. Okay, so we've got him right. You can see him right here. And I just wanted to kind of say he's here to talk about his new book, which is called The Planet of the Vampires. But he has another book that I was reading about also called Vampire Dead or Alive. And, you know, it's pretty interesting when you think about it. So you can look him up. I'm looking at the Amazon site right now where you can find the books. But Keith, you have a very interesting take on the vampires. Well, honestly, when I first heard about the vampires, I thought, well, I wonder what he would be talking about, because sometimes you think about vampires and it's not so great. Vampires are scary. But that's what we talk about here on Explaining the Unexplainable, is just that. It is, what is it about these things, these creatures, these people, these amazing things that we have all known about our whole life, whether it's real, whether it's not, we always want to know. And most of them, I do believe they are real. So, Keith, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You have an incredible background as a forensic scientist. I mean, I think that works amazing. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, I first got into vampires when I was, I guess, in late elementary, about fourth or fifth grade. There was a TV program called Dark Shadows.
Yeah.
It was a British sitcom that came on um, in the late afternoon after I got home from school. And I really loved that because I had been very much into the paranormal since I was 4 years old, and my parents really frowned upon it. Um, they they were like overbearingly frowning upon my interest in the paranormal and me doing paranormal research and me trying to understand the paranormal. Um, so anyway, when this TV program came on, I was just all smiles. I thought, great, I get to watch TV and not offend my parents. So I enjoyed it, and it made me think, how do vampires do what they really do? How are they able to do that? And as I went on through life, I didn't get my degree in chemistry until I was 50. So I had a long time to think about a lot uh, about how vampires do what they do. And with each course that I took at the University of Central Florida, I learned more about physics and genetics, and it allowed me to have more of a background as to how vampires may do what they do. As far as within my second book, Vampires Dead or Alive. And
Okay.
in that book, I look at each super ability of a vampire, like a vampire's ability to shapeshift. And then I try to explain, well, dead people can't shapeshift, living people can't shapeshift, but vampires can shapeshift.
Mhm.
So I look at how could one shapeshift? And the only reasonable explanation I could come up with, they have to time travel and just within their local body, time travel back to a time when they actually were whatever they want to shapeshift into. Say if they want to shapeshift into a cat. They, I feel we've all been reincarnated over thousands of times throughout who knows how long. So if you could bend space and time and have enough energy to just localize just for yourself to go back in time, the room wouldn't, the person watching you wouldn't, but just yourself, your body, you could bend space and time to go back in time to shape, then you would actually be whatever you want to shape shift into. So that's what the person would see. They'd say, well, he went from a human being into a cat. So I attempt to, describe how a vampire can do what they do. And you would have to have a lot of power or energy to break through the space time continuum to actually travel in time.
Mm.
So, and I think vampires can do that in maybe a couple different ways. They might have a very small black hole that they can control and keep near them so that they have the energy to travel in time. And it could just be their ability to magnify, say, the ley lines of the earth. And if they are close to a ley line of the earth, they might be able to have technology to magnify that energy so that it just allows their body to travel back through space and time to when they were the certain animal that they want to actually turn into. So that's what I look at in my first book. And I think the first book is actually more interesting than the third book. And the third book is Planet of the Vampires. But I've found people are very, very much interested in Planet of the Vampires because it's a totally different look at uh, vampires. It's not the Halloween, let's be scary, let's get frightened. And I notice in paranormal, if we want to understand something, we can't just be afraid of it. And the whole idea of understanding the paranormal is to look at it scientifically. And if we're just going to be like superstitious, I want to be afraid of it because it's evil and it's going to hurt me, or I think it's going to hurt me, then we don't learn anything. We're not going to be able to understand vampires or any other uh, supernatural type subject, animal, or cryptid that's out there. Hello,
This,
Dr. Bishop,
yeah,
or
Hello, Keith. How you
I'm
doing?
trying to read your name.
he's
Oh, I
got a
know
long
it's
name.
it's a mile
Bishop.
long. I apologize for that. I'm sorry I'm late. Elijah said, "Hey, aren't you going on tonight?" And I'm like, "Oh, I went to sleep." So,
Well, this time change has, I think it has been a very difficult to try to, keep trying to get the time change. I know it's very dark these days. A good place for vampires in the dark though. We were just discussing the vampires. And Bishop Joshua, the his take on this is very interesting. And so there's 3 books that he's written,
Mhm.
and um, I was talking with him about one of the things I was reading about was the first. I think it was you said it was the first book, right? That was your first book. Then the second book. Then what was the second book, Keith? I didn't
The
see
first
that.
book that I wrote was The Hayes House Ghost or People Too. And it was
Oh,
just
that okay. I
about
found that one.
it was
Okay, yeah,
it was
yeah.
my paranormal research that I did at the Hayes House in Apalachicola, Florida.
Oh, okay, that I okay, I get you. So then you went into the 2 books with about the vampires.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so I found all your books then. Um, so it's very, very, very interesting. And we've talked about this several times on the show about the
mhm.
cryptids, and we've talked about the time traveling. I thoroughly believe from what my abilities are and what I've seen that I believe they can go through portals in time. So I'm right there with you on that. Some people wouldn't believe that or whatever, but I believe it. So, and can you tell us a little bit about the also? the history. Like, so when do you believe that there's? I believe that they were in our history. Do you think that there are still vampires walking around today on like you said the planet of the vampires?
Well, I think that vampires probably had a lot to do with our DNA being manipulated. They probably were the ones who manipulated their DNA just to make us more like them so they could interbreed with us. Because, vampires here on Earth uh, really have a hard time with the sunlight. The sunlight is so strong, it causes their DNA to degenerate, and that'll just kill you. So, or kill the vampire. So I think they were motivated to want to make us more like them. And there's some of their genes within our DNA that doesn't show up in any other animals on Earth. And I think that's the genes that the vampires spiced in. So I think there's probably a little bit of vampire in all of us. It might sound distasteful for some, but I really do believe that they were the ones that manipulated our DNA that brought us away from being more like a chimpanzee to being more like the people we are today.
Now, you being a forensic scientist, what is the science that you are coming up with on that? Where do you find this research work for your beliefs?
Well, for
I mean,
my
ju-
beliefs,
yeah.
it's mainly theoretical, and it's just based on the first book. It's based on what I know about genetics and what I know about physics, what I know about chemistry, and the third book, Planet of the Vampires, it's theoretically based on what could actually exist on Proxima Centauri B with what we know about it, which we know limited, but we do know it's a planet that's tidal locked with its sun. Proxima Centauri is the name of the sun, and the planet is called Proxima Centauri B. It's tidal locked to the point that the daylight side is always daylight, and then the other half of the planet is always dark. So that means that for anything to live there, it would have to be an extremophile. It would have to either be able to live in a very cold area or a very hot area. So there are extremophiles on Earth that have been identified that could possibly live in those type of places. But there's a very thin strip around the circumference, all the way around the planet, where it's like constant uh, twilight, like right the way it would look here on Earth right before either the sun rises or the sun sets. And that area is where the vampires are more likely to be able to live on that planet because otherwise, if they were on the side that was scorching hot because it's constant daylight side of the planet, they would just burn to death. They would carbonate, you know. And if they were living on this side of the planet where it's just very cold because it's not facing their sun or their planet or their host star, Proxima Centauri, at all, then they would freeze to, well, they would freeze, but vampires won't die from freezing to death. But somebody would have to rescue them and unthaw them. So anyway, that's the only area that they could live, and the temperature would be ambient enough so that they could survive. So I feel that most of the vampires on Proxima Centauri B live underground in a cave system, whether it be natural or man made
Hmm.
or vampire made.
Yeah. What do you think about all this, Bishop Joshua?
Well, being raised with a father who um, frequently watched Dark Shadows and was a big fan of Jonathan Frid, aka Barnabas Collins. I met Jonathan Frid when I was 12, um,
Cool.
and I've got pictures I need to share on here sometime. One of the most gracious men I've ever met in my life. But Keith, he was out during the day. We all, we wondered if he was going to be able to come out during the day. But thanks to Dr. Hoffman manipulated his DNA, and he was able to, the story. I'm sure you watched it, Keith. But like I said, he was a very, very nice man. It's not. I mean, this isn't an uncommon thought. There's a lot of people that have different thoughts. I work in addiction recovery as a therapist, and I've studied science as well. Studying the brain, studying the mind, studying different things that people believe about themselves. There's different types of and I'm not going to really go into that today because I like to hear different thought processes, different opinions about things. But there's different people believe they're vampires. Some believe they're werewolves. Some believe that there are a number of different things, and there's really no, it's all theory. It's based on theory, but just about everything that we believe is based on theory. I mean, you know, we talk about gravity. We see things happening around us. We see gravity in effect. But if when that theory was introduced, there was really no way to prove it to be true until you know time went on and different variables were interjected into the different experiments. And there are thousands of stories dating back, and Keith can tell you that dating back for thousands of years, where people have felt like that they were, supernatural. They feel like that they were a vampire, a werewolf, and I find this to be very fascinating. Vampirism. Now, of course, when I approach it from an exorcist point of view, I mean, there's different things that we look at because we've dealt with this before. People that feel like that they have, you know, uh, whether it be a vampire, whether it be a werewolf, whether it be demonic possession, oppression, infestation. Um, we always look at the clinical psychological reality and the spiritual discernment behind that. Um, but I wanted to, as soon as I heard that Keith was going on, I wanted to share with him about meeting Jonathan Fred, and yes, he did have a reflection in the mirror. We were standing, and I know this sounds crazy, and everybody's going to be like, "Man, he's lost his mind." Listen, my mother was taking pictures. She was so afraid of him, Keith. She didn't
Really?
want to be around him. She backed away. Because he was pretty good. He was larger than us.
You're the
He's about
tall.
6'2". He's
Yeah.
tall, and he was Barnabas. I mean, come on. We watched him bite hundreds of people on Dark Shadows. And we watched it on TV, and she was afraid he was going to bite her. And I said, "Mom, your blood's too rare. Your blood's sour. You don't have to worry about him biting you." Um, but there are now. Let me share this. I said all that to say this, and I did have a point I was trying to make. Um, I was talking to a woman the other night, who's reached out to me. We met through TikTok, and she actually lives in my city. She's actually friends with family members. So, and I remember her from when I was a child. Keith, she told me she met a man here just in the last 20 years that didn't have a reflection, that had all of the qualifications that would make a person a vampire, even so much as that he drank blood, and he doesn't go out during the day. So my question to you is, how many people around the United States, around the world, have you had contact with or talked to someone that's connected to somebody that really does, in fact, have all these qualities, not qualities, rather, than all the traits that would make that person a vampire?
I haven't talked to anyone that had all those traits. A lot of times since I've written the book, there's people that want to try to convince me that they are vampires, but anyone can drink blood. It doesn't make you a
Yeah.
vampire. Just like I can fly when I fall out of a tree, but it doesn't make me a bird. Um, but this whole thing, most people realize that what you see on TV is a part being played by an actor, but I
Right.
feel that vampires, uh, if they genetically breed it with humans, we all might have a vampire trait that we just don't know about. Like, for instance, in January of 2017, I had kidney failure. And I didn't think for 1 second that I was going to die. And two doctors came into my room when I was in the, I think it was the cardiac care unit. And, they seemed to be happy about telling me that I was going to die. I thought as an Army medic, I felt like say, well, if I was able, I'd just get up and kick their butts because you shouldn't
Right.
be happy about celebrating that, that someone's going to pass away. But anyway, I never felt like I was going to pass away, and I think I have a clear enough relationship with God. He'll probably give me some type of a warning. So, and I don't mean a church-based or religious-based connection with God. I think people can have a down home, man-to-man connection with God that's far outlasting anything you could find in a church or in a religion.
Hmm.
So I didn't think I was going to die. And yeah, I'm still here, aren't I? So who was right? The doctors that had more religion than I have as a forensic scientist, or me? And anyway, I feel that possibly genetically having an ancestor who was a vampire might have helped me out because the whole ideal behind vampires is that when they're in that hibernation type state, like when a person passes away, but when their grave robber comes to dig them up, they reanimate. That whole length of time from the time, whatever time they passed away, to the time the grave robber accidentally dug them up, gave them time to heal. And sometimes just resting helps. It allows your body to self heal. And whatever happened, I made it. And I think a lot of that has to do with the ability that vampires have to self heal. And I think that that was passed along within my gene pool so that I was able to heal from a situation where the doctors thought that, it's not going to happen. And every doctor I talked to said that I was the only one that they know of who was that ill and that sick who survived. So to me, that's pretty spectacular, and I'm tickled to death about it because I like to at least live to be 100 and do a lot more writing. I like to actually help people with the paranormal because I run across situations every day, sad situations where little kids are afraid of something being in their room at night. And, I get permission from their parents to talk to them while their parents are present. And I just tell them that's your guardian angel looking over you at night, wanting to be close to you. It's nothing to be afraid of. Because I had the same thing when I was a kid. And I could not say anything to my parents because they already thought that I was extremely, I don't know what the term they used to use back in the 60s, extremely mental retarded or extremely mentally ill because I was interested in the subject of paranormal, which I thought was very sad. They did a lot to try to interfere with my interests as a child. But anyway, I really do feel that as a paranormal researcher, I can help people to understand that there's less need to be afraid of the dead or the guardian angel that's looking at you at night while you're sleeping, and more to fear with human beings who are alive. Because
Yeah.
I think my parents' reaction to me and my abilities as a child to uh, sense things like sense emotions of people who had passed away through the things that they loved, like a house and something like that. I think my parents' reaction was really detrimental to me. I think it held me back for years. I think it made me have a lot of self doubt. And I don't think that's necessary. I think there's enough people in this world that are going to throw self doubt in your face, and your parents shouldn't start with it. Their parents shouldn't be the one to do that to you. So, but as a child, I was empath. I could, for instance, my family, the one house my family had lived in from the 1850s, and this was in the 1960s when I was little and was in the house. So there was like 90 years of at least blood on my mother's side, relatives that had lived in the house. So I was able to pick up on things like I think they were very proud of the wainscoting that they had throughout their house. And as a 4-year old, I remember when I got to that house, I would look at that wood and just smile. It would make me so happy. And I don't know why, but I would say it was because at the time I wasn't sure why, but I know now, at least I have a theory now that it was me picking up on my relatives who had passed away and how much they were proud of that wainscoting, because wainscoting only goes up to maybe chair level, so that if, like in a dining room, if the chair hits the wall, it won't leave a dent. It'll just hit the wainscoting. Uh, and wainscoting is a clear finish over wood that has the actual rings and all from where the tree was cut down. It's a very beautiful wood. I still like that and appreciate that today. And my parents just went totally unhappy and just disbelief that they had a child who was that far gone. They really felt that they were delivered, something horrible. Just because I was happy about the wainscoting wood, and it was beautiful wood, and I was just picking up all the generations of my mother's family who had lived in that house over the years and all the pride they had in having something that beautiful. And I'm sure back in the 1850s, that wood was expensive. So if you had it in your house, it was like a status symbol, and it was also something that to be proud of. So that's how I first got into paranormal. Uh, at the time, I didn't know what the word empath was, and I think I heard about it maybe when I was a teenager on a talk show or something, and I thought, okay, that's what I am then. So, but that's how I first got into the paranormal, and I have paid dearly throughout my life for wanting to be and being a paranormal researcher. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, I hardly ever talked about it to anyone because, right away people were saying, well, that's a sign of your mental illness. Well, a lot of people do it today, and I don't think anyone thinks they're mentally ill. But that was how I should say, the conservative religious view back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Mhm.
And I didn't even talk about it much in the 90s. I remember trying to get friends to go Bigfoot hunting with me, and they thought that was too close to the paranormal and didn't want to have nothing to do with it. So even when I would go Bigfoot hunting in the woods around where I lived in Maryland, I had to go by myself.
Wow, I never thought about all this like that. So that's kind of sad for you
It's a
to.
good thing I don't. It's a good thing I don't mind being a loner
Yeah.
because I was pretty much, yeah, you're going to be a loner and nobody wants to hang out with that guy. But as an empath, if I'm around too many people for too long, I think I pick up the actual emotions of those people, and I want to get away. Believe me, I want to get away. So as an empath, I don't mind being alone. You know,
I totally
Yeah.
agree. I didn't even know I was an empath. I would always pick up everybody's stuff, and I could go into the mall and I would just be crying, just like start crying. And I didn't realize at the time that I was picking up or things were attaching to me. But that was my path. It was my path to learn that and to learn how to stop that from happening and clear myself and all that. So I hear what you're saying. I just think it's sad. I guess in my family, we just didn't talk about that. Like I started to see my grandpa that had died. So I saw him, had a dream about my grandpa sitting at his table in Arkansas. And I was probably like 11 at this time. And I had, my grandpa was just sitting there quiet at, at his table. And I had my horse, my little, my toy horse that I still have to this day, the same toy horse. And I woke up in the morning and I told my mom what had happened, what that dream was. And she said that they had just found out that my grandpa had died. The call came in that morning. I think my grandpa was telling me that he was passing and he was showing me that in the dream. But there were things that
Right.
stopped my abilities. Like so it doesn't sound like you ever had, like I had some like crazy stuff. I think it stopped my abilities. And then my abilities started coming back later in my life. It started coming back. This doesn't sound like your abilities really ever stopped, that you continue to be an empath your whole life, right?
But I don't rely on it. I don't, when I do paranormal research, I don't rely on it at all. But I will say one thing, doing paranormal research, after 2 or 3 hours, I'm emotionally drained. So that's probably from picking up information empathically. And so, anyway, I try to do paranormal research by myself, and I'm not a marathon man. Even when I was younger, I just want to do enough to get information and then wait for another day to work on it some more. So I don't try to go in and like I've never been in a paranormal group, and I don't really care to go in that route. I like doing it by myself, and I like to pace myself because when you're emotionally drained, you're no good to anyone, much less yourself.
That's
So
true.
I like to pace myself and not spend too much time doing paranormal research. And it seems like, you know, I'm so well known, at least I feel I'm so well known among the ghost and spirit community that a lot of times ghosts and spirits will come to me. It'll where I'm living at now, it's not unusual for the lights to flicker. It seems like, and I'll just say hi, I know you're here, and then usually they'll stop. And there's one light in my bedroom that flickers, and everyone said, "Oh, that's just the bulb getting ready to go up." I've been at this location for 3 years, and I haven't replaced the bulb yet. So, and every once in a while it'll flicker. So, if you're a paranormal researcher and you're well known and well respected among the ghosts and spirits, they'll find you if they want to communicate.
So I agree with that, and they can definitely manipulate and communicate through the electricity.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We see that happen a lot on the unseen realm. The electronics are manipulated, and the power goes out, so to speak. That's the easiest way to explain it. But we're there's a veil, a thin veil, and it's they're all around us. Good, bad spirits. Um, and something you said though about being able to um, feel what people are feeling. I mean that sometimes I mean we think of that as a gift, but sometimes you know uh, in my particular personal life, sometimes it's such a hardship to feel what other people are feeling,
Hmm.
to plug into a group of people where you already know, because Keith, and Mercedes, you walk in the room and automatically you start feeling all these different emotions hitting you. And you think it's you and you realize, oh no, it's everybody around me. And you start to feel what they're feeling and sense what they're going through. And I mean, that probably the hardest thing as a clinician when I get up and teach groups is that fact that I'm an empath too, and I can feel what they're feeling and thinking and the mood, and I mean that helps give me material to talk about. But it doesn't make me feel any better. Right?
Well,
So,
I I remember one time when I was in the army. I was a medic, and we were medical support for the Ranger School, which is in
thank you for
Dahlonega,
your service.
Georgia. Thank you. And I was stationed at Fort Benning, and I just got back from the Ranger Camp commitment, and you know, I forget who it was, but they were one of the smart aleck people in the chain of command. They came up to me all smiling, saying, "We're going to give you a break." At that time, I was Specialist Evans, and I thought, "Yeah, a break." And they said, "We want you to go up to work at Martin Army Hospital for a week or so." And I had been with the Rangers during the uh, Grenada situation, and I had heard about all the helicopters that collided. So I went up to the hospital to see what this unit was, and it was just a unit of men who had lost their legs due to the helicopters colliding, and the blades when they break off, they just cut through everything. Cut through the helicopter, cut through your leg or whatever. And when I saw what they wanted me to work with, I hadn't accepted anything. I just listened when that sergeant told me that we're going to give you a rest. We're going to send you up to Martin Army Hospital, a new unit that just opened up. It opened up on one of the floors that usually, I think it was like 7A or 7B, and it was a floor that's usually not utilized. It's only used if they need it. So I came back and I went to the sergeant in charge of Ranger Camp commitments, and I said, "You have a Ranger camp coming up soon." He said, "Yep, a couple days." I said, "Are you short on people?" He said, "Yeah, I'm short on 4." I said, "Well, if I volunteer, will you take me?" He said, "I sure will." So he put me on the list and cut me orders to go to Ranger camp commitment. And the next thing, that sergeant comes and says, "What the hell did you do, Sergeant Evans?" Well, it was Specials Evans. He said, "You're supposed to go up to um, Martin Army Hospital uh, to work up there in the unit that ward that just opened." And I said, "Well, they needed me to go to the Ranger Camp commitment, and that takes priority over everything else." So, but as a empath, when a young gentleman who has his whole life ahead of him, who is in very good shape, loses an arm or a leg, it's emotionally taxing, to say the least. And I didn't want to have to feel all that working up there. And when you worked up at the hospital as a medic, you work 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. That's not a break. That's not a vacation. And
No, it's not.
but that's the Army's way of letting how much they appreciate you as a medic, which sometimes it didn't seem like they appreciated me as a medic at all. So I went to the Ranger Camp commitment, and I didn't have to work at that unit at the Martin Army Hospital, and I was glad because I'm tickled to death to help any soldier or anyone. As I was a Maryland EMT for years and Army medic for years, I like emergency medicine. I like helping stabilize them and transporting them, but I do not like what one would call nursing. I'm not wanting to be there by their bedside through a prolonged period of time. So I don't mind emergency medicine because you're so busy reacting to what's in front of you. As an empath, you don't have time to pick up any feelings, and I like that. So anyway, that was my little story about how I was able to get out of a negative situation. It wouldn't have been good for me. And you got to look out for number one. Um, and I didn't re up. I got out of the Army. I didn't get back in until 17 or 18 years later. After 9/11, they allowed the old man to get back into the army. So I think I got back in. I got back into the Army Reserves when I was 41 or 42, and they had this. They had us to the physical to get back in was one thing. You had to be leaning back, off balance, and stand up straight. And I thought, it's gonna be hard to do. I did it the first time. But I think I had some help. I think I had some help from some ghosts and some spirits that were pushing me forward. And thank God that I did get back in because that extra money from being a soldier and the extra benefits by having the VA, it's worth its weight in gold. It really is. So I
Oh
thank
yeah.
God that I got back in. So, but I think I had a little help from the ghosts and spirits to stand up like that while being off balance, and I did it the first time. It even surprised the doctor who was like doing the exam.
That's amazing.
So
Hmm.
That's so,
That
I
is
mean,
pretty cool.
and that's really nice that you actually went back and did that, especially after 9/11, 9/11. So
well,
I
I
hear a
figured
lot of people.
they
Go
needed
ahead.
soldiers, and I figured it'd be my chance to get back in, and it worked.
Awesome.
That
Yeah.
is pretty cool.
So when
Um,
are you going to be creating any more vampire books? So there's you've got
I don't
two.
know in the future. I'm definitely working on some books now, but when you work on a book, you just kind of take your time and you write, you rewrite, you look at something, you think, well, I could say that better. I could say that with less words, and I could elaborate on it. I could add another paragraph, to support that, and it's one of those things where I don't really feel hurried to do it. And at the same time, I like to have two or three things that I'm working on so that when I do get them finished, I can say, well, I spell check that a million one times. So, but
mm,
you know, but the third book, Planet of the Vampires, I wasn't even going to write a book because I didn't have any ideals, and some of the books I'm working on now are just uh, older things that I've done in the past, since maybe you know 2016, and just stuff that I've been working on, but just haven't released it because it seems like a lot of people would rather go and do a live paranormal research on their own than read a book about me and my paranormal research. So I've been hesitating to release books like that. But in July of this year, I kind of got an ideal that just came out of nowhere, and that was Planet of the Vampires. And it seemed like every night I sat down and I wrote a new chapter. And I thought, wow, that seems like it's coming easy now. So by September, I think it was either September 6th or September 7th, I published the book Planet of the Vampires, um, the ebook on Kindle, and the paperback and the hardback on Amazon. And there's another location that I'd like to get it published on before Christmas, but I don't know if I'm going to have time. But there's another location. It used
The
to
Barnes
be
and
called
Nobles?
it used to be called Smash Words.
Oh,
They
Smash.
might be connected, but now it's called something else. But I'm not sure if Barnes and Noble has a free system. I'm not going to pay to publish it because there's no money in that, and I just can't afford it. I'd rather
Right.
put whatever money I have towards actually doing live paranormal research.
Yeah.
So,
They do.
but one
They do.
thing
They do. Barnes and
they
Nobles
do, Barnes and
can
Noble
do it for
does.
free. Yeah.
Well, okay,
So
I have to check
I
into
think
that.
Amazon was I've done 3 books, and I think Amazon seems to be the easiest, and everything comes out I think comes out very nicely, everyone I've
Yeah.
seen, so it makes it easy. But yeah.
Well, this last book, Planet of the Vampires, the I have um, AI generated photos of what uh, the skies of um Proxima Centauri B would look like,
Mm,
because they're going to be filled with a lot of charged plasma from all the explosions and flares coming from a red dwarf star that they're very close to. And the photos in the paperback are black and white. So it doesn't do the aurora borealis any justice. But in the hardcover, it's in color, so it's very beautiful. The aurora borealis, as I feel, would be taking place on the in the skies over Proxima Centauri b. So if you have a chance to take a look at the book, the hardcover, check that out because I think that turned out very well.
Bishop Joshua, do you have any more questions? I know I kinda asked a lot of questions.
No, no, you're great. I'm just sitting here listening. We definitely want to have Keith back on because there. I mean, we could talk for hours. You know, psychic vampirism. You know, a person that drains you emotionally, spiritually. You know, or you know the psychic energy from another person. Um, or it's sometimes called energy vampirism or emotional vampirism. And you know, I was wanting to try to get Keith's uh, outlook or how he feels about psychic vampirism, and if he's ever experienced any psychic vampires in his life.
Well, I have not, but at least not knowingly. But I don't really feel that that's the classic type vampire that I write about. I've never written about that form. They just kind of use the name vampire, but I think it's more of a form of abusive person, a
Hmm.
person that wants to control you and manipulate you. It's
Right.
similar to a person that's narcissist. I think I'm pronouncing it right.
Hmm.
And people like that, just get away from them. And if you have
Right.
a parent like that, you're pretty much up the creek until you can financially get out on your own. But there are people like that out there, and but I don't consider that to be what I would consider a vampire. I think it's just more like an abusive person. And
Hmm.
sometimes these people are abusive like that because they have no empathy. They don't care how you feel or think. They don't. They're not concerned. And you might say it's a character trait or a physical trait that their mind doesn't say, "Hey, I shouldn't do that because that's going to hurt that person." They just don't consider that at all. So I think that's more of a classification of mental illness than actually a classification of a vampire. At least that's my
Right.
opinion.
More like a borderline personality disorder or some kind of dependent personality disorder, like you said, narcissistic. Um, a lot of that stems from severe anxiety and abandonment, trauma bonds, what we call trauma bonds, and like maladaptive attachment styles. Um, and it's just I guess the way I was trying to say it, or the way I was trying to present it, is kind of like like you said, being around them people that had all that trauma from being hurt or wounded in combat. It's kind of like an empath fatigue. Um, when you're highly sensitive or empathetic, just you feeling drained by others. Especially those who are chaotic, manipulative or unstable. And I mean, it's not really like that because I've had people ask me about psychic vampirism. It's not really like energy's really being taken away from you. It makes you feel drained sometimes to be around people that you feel like is. And I guess they use the word vampire because it feels like they're sucking the energy or the life out of you. I know when my kids were young, I felt like they were spiritual or psychic vampires because they used to drain me, but don't listen, guys. I'm just joking. If they can hear me. Um, but
I hear
I was raised around the classical vampire. So basically, what you're talking about is kind of like the classical vampire that we've read about and watched on movies, and ever since we were little. Um, you know, anytime anything vampire related came on when we were kids, we were glued to the TV. You know, um, was it the Lost Boys, Kiefer Sutherland, and uh, you know, um, what was it? No, who was it that played on the Lost Boys?
Corey
Uh,
Feldman. I don't. A lot of them did in that.
I
yeah, I mean it was
I
a.
never saw that. the
Oh,
only
really?
vampire the only vampire movie I saw was the one Johnny Depp was in called Dark Shadows, and I watched that because it had the name Dark Shadows. But
Hmm.
I just haven't got out to see too many movies. I live about 2 hours in two different directions from the nearest movie theater, and I don't even have cable TV anymore. Um, when the price of groceries stayed pretty well up after 2020, I figured, well, I could do without cable TV.
Yeah, me too. We don't have it either, so we
We don't
just.
either. I mean, I've got YouTube. I've got Roku's free. I mean, I
Yeah.
get hundreds of channels on Roku, but I don't have time to watch TV. Um,
Well,
so
so what is? Where can people find you, Keith? Where can you tell people what you're doing and where they can find you the easiest?
Well, I have a YouTube channel. It's called Paranormal Short Sessions by Keith Evans. And I try to put up a new paranormal short session at least once a week. Um, and my books can be found uh, Kindle. Hayes House Ghosts for People 2 is only on Kindle. Right now, it's only an ebook. And when it comes to the second book, Vampires Dead or Alive, it's available ebook on Kindle and paperback on Amazon. The third book, Planet of the Vampires, is available ebook on Kindle, paperback, and hardback on Amazon.
Very
And
good.
I think there's other book selling places that can also get it from Amazon. I saw something. I can't remember the name of the company, but I did a search of my name, and this book company came up, and they were selling my third book, Planet of the
Interesting.
Vampires.
That's interesting.
So so anyway,
Maybe.
if some company wants to sell it, they just have to get permission from Amazon, but they can do it. So
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So I'm like, wow, that yeah, because they have subsidiaries. Well, and I apologize. I didn't find I found a lot of stuff on you online, but I wasn't relating that YouTube channel to. I was thinking that was different shows you had been, but that was actually your YouTube channel. I get it now. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was very interesting. Yeah, I was finding that. So very cool. Well, we do hope to have you back again next year sometime, and you can tell us more about what you're doing next year, all these projects you're working on now.
All
That'd
right.
be
Sounds
great.
good.
and
Yeah,
Keith, what is it? What's the name of your YouTube channel again, so I can go on there and check it out?
It's called
paranormal.
Paranormal Short Sessions by Keith Evans.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot of them on there. I was like, okay. I was thinking, well, these are all the shows that maybe he's been on because I was like, wow, there's a
No,
lot here.
they're all my paranormal short sessions in the entirety. And there's also I started maybe a little over a year ago doing promos because to put anything on Instagram and Facebook to advertise my YouTube channel, it had to be like a minute, 60 seconds or less. So I started
Mhm.
calling them promos. And as time went on, I added extras. So I try to do at least 4 extras, which I call extra A, B, C, and D, and 4 promos, 1 through 4, each week. So I started putting them on my YouTube channel, even though they're short, because people were upset because sometimes my promo would last a minute and a half and they'd only get to see 50 seconds or so that Facebook or Instagram would allow them. So then I
Right.
started telling people, okay, I'll go ahead and put it on the YouTube channel so you'll be able to see the whole thing. Because sometimes if I'm doing a extra or a promo and I'm getting good paranormal, I don't stop. So you won't see that if you're on Instagram or Facebook because they'll pretty much hold you to 1 minute. They promised off and on to allow me to have 3 minutes, but they hardly ever do that. So that's the reason why I put the promos and my extras on my YouTube channel. So people, if they get disappointed, then they can go on there and see the rest of it. If Facebook and Instagram cuts them off.
That's a good idea because I have that trouble too. I want to go longer than a minute, but it's amazing. They say like we are working with the Tucson Botanical Gardens with the 501c3 media stuff I do, and the one lady said Mercedes cut it down to like 30 seconds, 35 seconds. She said that's their
It's very
best.
hard.
I'm like 35 seconds. It's only attention span or something. But that's what she said. I'm like, okay, 35 seconds. So yeah, it's kind of like, woo! And, but that's great to know. Thank you so much for sharing that information too.
Well,
I know
thank you all
Mr.
for having me on
Joshua,
tonight.
are you on TikTok too?
I used to be, but I'm not on now. I think
Yeah,
I still my
oh,
password is probably still good, but I just haven't done anything on TikTok.
I know
I
Mr.
have
Joshua.
the old password or create a new one.
Yeah, that's we're trying to do that. Both he's doing that. I've started because I don't know. I feel a little bit safer about TikTok than I did a few years ago. I heard felt nervous about it a few years ago, but I guess it's okay now. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
started
great.
back in September, posting on TikTok, and I've connected with hundreds of people around the world. And it's really a minute 30 seconds. You could say more than what you think in a minute 30 seconds. I was called the Captain America of the gospel the other day. I was like, what? It's pretty interesting because
That's
people, they connect with you, and I like to do Q&A. I was on live there the other day and just got to connect with people. You know what I mean? It's because a lot of times you see somebody on TV or you see somebody on social media platforms, and they don't. Oh, don't touch me! I'm a social media and they don't have any interaction with people that they talk to. And
Right.
I'm the kind of guy that I want to talk to everybody. I want to meet everybody, Keith. I'm glad I've got to meet you, and I'm glad that I get to know you. To me, that's an honor. You know what I mean? To get to meet different
Right.
people and get
That's
to hear their
true. That is
opinions and their
true.
beliefs. And I really honor those things, and I honor you tonight. And I thank you for being with us. But I just like to know
Thanks.
I think it's funny
Uh,
you missed the first part because he started talking about Barnabas and Dark Shadows, and then when you came on, you
Oh,
started
I didn't know that.
talking. Yeah,
Hey, great minds think alike, Keith.
yeah,
Great
that's
minds think
yeah.
alike.
well. Thank you so much, Keith, and we really appreciate you being on. Thank you to Stan, our wonderful producer. We
We love
appreciate
you, Stan.
you. We don't want to
Thanks
keep
for
going.
having me.
Yeah, we don't want to keep Stan because I know he's got to go to everybody's got to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, thank you so much, and we look forward to having you again sometime with us. Okay.
Yes, yes, we
That
definitely
sounds
want you to come
great.
back for
Uh,
sure. For
Thank
sure.
Sounds
you. All
good.
right.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody. Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
Good
you so
night.
much.